Welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show, hosted by Mason Kern. He keeps his nose to the ground to report on what's trending in professional and college sports, to inform, enlighten, and entertain. And now it's
the Sports Watchdog.
the Sports Watchdog, Mason Kern.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix. As always, I'm your host, Mason Kern, joining you every Sunday, and as always, there's a lot of great stuff to talk about, lots of great stuff in the kennel this week, from sports hot topics to our always interesting happenings on the Hardwood. You're not going to want to miss those two segments, and we also have a great interview coming up later with Dr. Jay Calvert, also known as Dr. Hockey, and we'll be getting into an interview with him later just on the state of Arizona Coyotes and the NHL and a preview of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you're not going to want to miss that. So stay tuned. Lots of great things coming here on the Sports Watchdog Radio Show. So in Sports Hot Topics this week, we're going to talk about football a little bit, not necessarily NFL football, not necessarily prep football, because we're talking about the Alliance of American Football and its shutdown, as the league did shut down this past week before the conclusion of its inaugural season. Players were in hotels prior to games that they were scheduled to play, and the league actually just shut down. Some of the players were kicked out of their hotel rooms because they hadn't been paid for. A lot of kind of controversial things happening just with players not getting paid their paychecks. The players not really having anywhere to go after the league ceases football operations, multiple teams putting out statements, and the players taking to Twitter to kind of express their disbelief, discomfort with the situation, everything that kind of is going on and what went wrong. And it's kind of disappointing because this league did gain some interest. I mean, especially here in Arizona with the Arizona Hotshots, who were playing in Sun Devil Stadium, which is Arizona State's football stadium. I mean, they had garnered a fan base. They had sold merchandise. They had a following already in this brief kind of stint to their inaugural season. And there were some good players who were making their cases as, hey, the AAF could potentially be a feeder league into the NFL at some point, which, I mean, that's the track that both of those entities probably wanted to go on and maybe strive toward at some point. Because if you look at the marginal differences from the beginning of the AAF and kind of the first game to where the league was and the following it had and how the game of football was being played in its last game, there was vast improvement all across the board, just in terms of the level of football, the interest level, the entertainment value, fan turnout. Practically everything was on the rise. It's just tough to sustain that level of interest, that level of monetary income to continuously pay your players when you're going to pay out your rent for whatever stadium rights you hold, and all of these other factors that culminate into, hey, okay, Dundon can't run this league anymore, that they cease football operations before the conclusion of even the first season. A lot of people thought, okay, after this first season, maybe the league will shut down, maybe they'll find a way to keep it running, which a lot of people probably would have liked because, I mean, it's a football season when the NFL season isn't its off season per se. So it gives people football in an off season of the main league, the NFL, which people really liked. And there were some instrumental and experimental new rules they were playing with just in terms of officiating and replay reviews. That the NFL probably could have taken from to make the overall game better at the NFL level. But I mean, a lot of these players now who are really living out their dream, playing football professionally in a paid environmental setting, having to put that dream now on hold unless they did enough to prove to an NFL team that, hey, you should give me a shot. Which, I mean, obviously it's very hard to get that in the NFL, especially for just these players playing in the AAF. Definitely going to be interesting to see who gets called up. But one success story, I guess, from this, from the Arizona Hotshots, for ASU wide receiver Rashad Ross gets signed with a Carolina Panthers. So, I mean, yes, there are some success stories of players already signing NFL contracts coming out of the AAF, but a majority of those players won't really get that shot. And this was really their last stint to play football, the game they love, get paid doing so. So the fact that the league is shut down in this way without the conclusion of kind of the season, it's kind of saddening, disappointing to say the least, just with the potential that this league had. It'll be interesting to see if it will get continued at some point, if they can figure out a way to get it back up and running. But for as of right now, AAF no longer a league, and the teams in which that kind of took part in it no longer having anything to play for. But don't go away, because the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix, will be right back after this.
If you're losing your hair or notice that it's getting thinner, listen closely. You can do something about it without messy lotions or drugs. Now you can get clinically proven hair growth results at home with the Hair Max Laser. Hair Max delivers nourishing laser light energy to stimulate hair growth right at the roots. It's FDA cleared, recommended by doctors, and best of all, it has an amazing 93% success rate in clinical studies in both men and women, so you can be sure it works. Use it just 3 times a week and experience new hair growth, increased density, and healthier, fuller, more attractive hair in just weeks with a 5-month money-back guarantee. Now, for a limited time, save 15% on your HairMax order at hairmax.com. Type in code RADIO at checkout or call 1-800-9REGROW. That's hairmax.com, code RADIO, or 1-800-9REGROW. Experience real hair growth and save 15% with HairMax.
Hey everyone, welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix. I'm your host, Mason Kern, and joining us now is Dr. Jay Calvert, the renowned Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, also known as Dr. Hockey. Thanks for joining us on the Sports Watchdog Radio Show, Dr. Calvert. Glad you could make it here today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Mason. This is it's an exciting time of the year in hockey.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, playoffs are right around the corner, and just as we kind of looking at it just in terms of here in the desert, Arizona Coyotes hockey, really for the first time really since 2014, it seems like this team was playing pretty competitive hockey down the stretch, making that playoff push. Just in your opinion, what did you see out of this Arizona Coyotes team this season?
Well, I've been following them closely because some of my favorite players and coaches have made their way to the Arizona Coyotes over the past couple of years, including Rick Tocchet, who loved him as a player for the Penguins. He was the assistant for their 2 Stanley Cups, and now he's coaching the Phoenix Coyotes and the Arizona Coyotes. I really feel that Tocchet has vision for the team and has put together an amazing complement of players.
Right, yeah, and I mean, obviously, playing such competitive hockey down the stretch, I mean, super important just in terms of this program. Now, personally for you, like I said, renowned Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, how do you get interested in hockey? And then, like I said, you're also known as Dr. Hockey, so how does that just kind of come to be?
Well, it's interesting, the way that I wound up creating this podcast, I've been a hockey fan my whole life. I played in high school, but really, I've followed hockey with an eye on statistics and the way that players come out of the juniors and how they're developed in all the various farm systems, AHL, and over time, I've just gotten a feel for the way that the NHL develops players to really work in the show, and how the greatness of each player can be maximized in this incredible league. It's been fun for me because ultimately what happened, I was in Las Vegas having lunch with Joe Maloof right after he and his brothers had sold the Sacramento Kings. And I said, "What's next for you guys?" He said, well, doctor, he said it in his way, "we're thinking about getting into hockey." And I said, "Hockey? I'm your guy." And so I wound up really teaching him about it and helping him with whatever I could to write the pitch for the team. And ultimately they got the team. And, I put in my list of players they should draft, and only about 92% of them wound up on the team. So I felt like I helped them out a lot in that respect. But ultimately, they said you should do something with your knowledge. And the only thing I could think was I could sit down for 15 minutes after a session of surgery and seeing some patients and talk about hockey with some of my buddies. And it's just blown up, and it's been really fun.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's awesome to be. I mean, being able to talk about your passion. Definitely. I mean, really, really a great time, especially when you're doing it just on your own, maybe in between sessions, like you said. I mean, definitely really cool. And like we said, I mean, this Coyotes team this season played really well down the stretch. I mean, playing really competitive hockey toward the end. What just do you think is in their future do they need to do in order to make the playoffs and become competitive and make some playoff runs here in the future?
Well, they've got a couple of issues. I mean, I think first of all, they've got some amazing talent with, they've got some veteran talent, and they've got some rookie and early career talent as well. I think grabbing Michael, no pun intended, but getting Michael Grabner was just huge. This is a guy that I love watching him play. And, you know, he was a Ranger for a long while, and then he showed up for the end of the season last year with the Devils, and somehow the Coyotes snagged him. And that's a huge win because he's back together with his old Ranger teammate, Derek Stepan, who's incredible. And, you know, I think Hjalmarsson and Ekman Larsson are big-time blue line support. But I think really what's missing for the Coyotes is they don't have a defensive – whatever their plan, I don't know how Tocchet coaches them, but I suspect it's Penguin-esque. But they don't have a transition from the D into their offensive zone that is reliable. And I see them, like, when they're on, like, that's what's working, because you know you've got Mario Kempe and you know, you've got a lot of guys that can score goals,
right?
But they just the way that they get in the zone is either excellent and they win the game, or it's herky jerky and they lose. And I think something about their defense is where they need to spend their time focusing, because you know, the truth is they do have guys that can put the puck in the net, and their goal differentials are not awful, and they just have I think they need something more on the D, and I don't know exactly what it is, because if you look at their players and look at their stats, you'd say this team is playoff bound and they should be there. And I didn't even say that just this year. I said it last year on the Dr. Hockey podcast. As soon as they got Tocchet and they had the players that they did, and they got Hjalmarsson to step on, blah, 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 I was like, this is a team that's going to the playoffs. Somehow They didn't make it last year. They almost did it this year. I think the future is very bright for hockey in the desert.
Right, yeah, definitely. I mean, especially like we've said multiple times already, just playing meaningful games down the stretch definitely helps, and then getting some consistency issues maybe corrected, that would definitely go a long way in the long run. And now just transitioning toward kind of the NHL as a whole, as we kind of approach Stanley Cup playoffs, do you have any predictions for who might be in the championship, and then who maybe comes out on top?
Well, coming out of the West, I think it's a little bit difficult to predict, because the teams that I would have said are going to be there are not playing very well right now. I would have said Winnipeg Jets all the way, but they have just been like limping into the playoffs. I mean, it's been awful for them. And, you know, I think the Golden Knights have the juice to get there again, but they also are having, you know, they're having hiccups here and there. I thought the Sharks were kind of a shoo-in when they put together this all-star team. And the truth is, Joe Pavelski is having a career year, so I'm not going to count the Sharks out of making another appearance in the Stanley Cup final. Although I was very happy, I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, if you might have garnered that.
Right.
But I was happy to watch them lose in Pittsburgh. You know, I went to Game 1, and it was pretty enjoyable for me. But they are a great team. They've got great players. I think Logan Couture is one of the most underrated players in the NHL, and I think that the Sharks could show up there based on the way they're playing. I know everybody thinks Calgary is like the Cinderella story and could be there, and that's very possible. But I for whatever reason, I don't think Calgary in a 7-game series with some of these other teams is gonna make it, just because they don't have the size. They do have the talent and the skill, but for Stanley Cup playoffs are a whole different animal. And I wouldn't go to Vegas and put my money on Calgary. That's just, my 2 cents. I think it's going to be either Winnipeg, the Golden Knights, or the Sharks out of the West. And if you put a gun to my head and said who it's going to be, I'd say it's the Golden Knights again. Earlier this year I would have said Winnipeg, but they just don't look like they've got it together right this minute.
Yeah, it's hard to put your faith in a team that come playoff time is playing their worst hockey of the season.
It is. I mean, you have to have a hot goalie, you have to have a hot offense, and everything's got to be clicking for it to go deep in the playoffs. And that's why, I mean, the Golden Knights have gotten it together, and I think they're going to be trouble for the Sharks. So one of those two is out in the first round, since they're teeing it off together. And then, down the road, could you see the Calgary come out of it? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's going to be either the Golden Knights or Winnipeg. Winnipeg will probably get it together. They have such a talented team, and the Golden Knights have a lot going for them, but it's difficult to predict because I don't think the winner's coming out of the West anyway. I think the winner's coming out of the East. I think Toronto and Tampa Bay look like they've got their names on the Stanley Cup at this point. But I also want to go on record that I would not count out this New York Islanders team. Barry Trotz is hot off the Stanley Cup win. He took a team that didn't make the playoffs last year. He kicked off one of the best players in the NHL and put him on another team, got rid of him, and now they're in the playoffs and they look very dominant. They look very strong, and they've got and they're a problem for Tampa Bay and for Toronto.
Right.
So I wouldn't put it past the New York Islanders to make their way into the finals.
Well, there you go. Dr. Calvert, that's his 2 cents on the Stanley Cup playoff race and everything around the NHL. Now, I also wanted to know, Dr. Calvert, because as a plastic surgeon and hockey is a very violent sport, when there's fights and injuries and all these things happen, do you find yourself when you're watching like, oh, I know how to fix that, or do you get in that kind of doctor mode, or is it not really like that?
No, I definitely get in the doctor. I'm in doctor mode all the time. And as a plastic surgeon, facial trauma is near and dear to my heart. It's how I got good at doing rhinoplasty,
right,
and nose jobs, and facelifts. Is doing all this. I trained in Pittsburgh, and I'm not sure they've discovered seat belts even now in Pittsburgh. But we used to have 4 or 5 really bad face fractures a week, and when I see these guys pummeling each other, that's one thing, because I don't think the fights are the problem. What I think is the problem for face trauma is a puck going 102 miles per hour off the stick of a PK Subban, or a 30 mile per hour slam into the boards, and right, that can do some damage to your face. I mean, obviously the brain injury is a whole nother topic we could spend 2 hours on. But
right,
the facial trauma is very real. I always think of that Phil Kessel slap shot into Zach Werenski's face, and man, that was a rough beating to that guy's poor eye socket.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this sport is very violent, not just the fights, but like you mentioned, I mean, just pushing into the boards and then just the risk of getting hit in the face with the puck. I mean, I can't even imagine really what that's like. But Dr. Calvert, thank you so much for your time. We're running out of time here. So where can our listeners go to get more information or just to connect with you?
Well, we're on Apple Podcasts. It's just Dr. Hockey Podcast. So anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can usually find us. But there's a website, drhockey.net, like the pucks in the net, and we have Instagram is Dr. Hockey Podcast. Our Twitter's Dr. Hockey Podcast, and we've been picking up some steam. So people are checking us out. We have a great time, and a great co-host, and Jason Berkeley, who's a pain specialist, believe it or not. So we really
nice.
Get to work that all in.
Yeah, definitely really cool. Well, guys, make sure to go check out the Dr. Hockey Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Not going to want to miss out on all the insight that they provide. Well, guys, don't go away. The Sports Watchdog Radio Show will be right back after this quick break.
If you're tired of hair falling flat, check out the npbeautiful.com flat iron by celebrity hairstylist David Babai, known for Kate Hudson's beachy waves. This sleek modern iron is curved, allowing for endless styling options like waves, flips, curls, and ringlets. Innovative rose gold vibrating plates heat up to 400 degrees, shuffling the hair back and forth to minimize tugging, slipping, or pulling. And 10% of net proceeds support pediatric cancer and animal welfare causes. Find it at npbeautiful.com.
Hey, travel lovers, if you want to up your luggage game, check out EagleCreek.com, an innovative and durable line that's sustainably made with PVC-free materials. One stellar option is the Orf Trunk 36, a big bag crafted for big adventure. It's hard to find upright luggage that puts as much into durable, useful features as this one does. Built with all explorers in mind, the Orf Trunk 36 is lightweight, dependable, and efficient. With wet and dry compartments, multi-point handles, a cargo net for internal compression or outside gear attachment, puncture-resistant lockable zippers, central lock point security, oversized treaded wheels, padded laptop sleeves, and more, this luggage seemingly has it all. It even has a key fob quarter key bottle opener. Plus, there's free shipping on all orders and a no-matter-what lifetime warranty. Shop now at EagleCreek.com. That's EagleCreek.com.
You ready to hoop it up? This is Happenings on the Hardwood.
All right, guys, as always, at the end of the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix. It's your favorite segment, or at least it's mine. You guys know it's Happenings on the Hardwood. And we're looking at the NBA playoff race, kind of breaking down the current standings in this last week of the regular season as teams look to clinch their spot and hopefully clinch a playoff berth. Some of the picture is already set in stone, and we kind of know some of the matchups or what they could possibly look like. So just breaking it down, I'll start with the Eastern Conference. It's the Milwaukee Bucks, on the number 1 seed. They've already clinched that, and the Toronto Raptors, who've clinched the number 2 seed. So numbers 1 and 2 already locked up. There's only 5 teams who are still eligible to make 3 playoff spots. The 6, 7, and 8 seeds are still up for grabs between 5 teams. It's between Detroit Pistons, Brooklyn Nets, Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, and the Charlotte Hornets. So those 5 teams are seeking the 6, 7, and 8 spots in terms of just cracking the playoffs. I'll just kind of give a brief breakdown of the playoff chase for each one of these teams just in the Eastern Conference, those at-large teams who still are fighting for a chance. Starting with the Pistons, they currently sit at 39-39, 4 games left, at Oklahoma City, at home against Charlotte, at home against Memphis, and at New York Knicks. Detroit does have the tiebreaker over the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat, but the Brooklyn Nets and the Charlotte Hornets have tiebreakers over Detroit. And the Pistons' magic number to clinch a spot is 3. So that's their magic number when just looking at this playoff chase. Now for the Nets, they currently sit at 39-40 with 3 games left at Milwaukee, at Indiana, and versus the Miami Heat. Brooklyn has the tiebreaker over the Pistons and the Magic, and the Hornets have tiebreaker over Brooklyn. The Heat lead the season series against the Nets 2-1 with 1 game remaining, as I mentioned, and the Nets' magic number to clinch a spot is 3 as well. Now, looking at the Heat are 38-40 with 4 games left at Minnesota, at Toronto, versus Philadelphia, and at Brooklyn. And Miami has control of no tiebreakers currently. Their magic number to clinch a spot is 4. When looking at the Magic, they're 39-40 with 3 games left versus Atlanta, at Boston, and at Charlotte. Orlando does have the tiebreaker over the Heat. The Pistons and Nets have tiebreakers over Orlando, though, and the Hornets lead the season series with the Magic 2-1 with 1 game remaining, as I mentioned, and Orlando's magic number to clinch a spot is 3. Now, looking at the Hornets, they're in the worst position at 36-42 with 4 games left versus Toronto, at Detroit, at Cleveland, and versus Orlando. Charlotte has tiebreakers over the Pistons, Nets, and Heat, and trail the season series over the Magic 2-1 with 1 game remaining, as I mentioned. And the Hornets do not control their own destiny for a playoff spot and need at least 2 other teams to lose some games. Now, the most critical games in that stretch is going to be Charlotte at Detroit, Miami at Brooklyn, and Orlando at Charlotte. So those are the games to look for in the Eastern Conference. Now, in the West, a lot more teams have already clinched spots. You have Golden State, Denver, Houston, Portland, Utah, the Clippers, Oklahoma City, and San Antonio. That playoff race is already set. No more spots remaining in the in the Western Conference, I should say. But no seeds are clinched, so I will say that. Now, looking at the playoff race, the Warriors are 54-24 with 4 games left. They have tiebreakers over the Nuggets and Blazers, but lost the tiebreaker to the Rockets, which are likely to be the number one, and the Warriors are likely to be the number 1 seed in this race. Now, the bottom of the barrel would be the Spurs and the Thunder. Thunder have a 45-33 record. The Spurs have a 45-34 record. 3 and 4 games left apiece. And there's just a lot of different factors here that need to happen for this to be successful, in terms of just jockeying for seeding, who wants to play the Warriors, who wants to play Denver, who wants to play Houston. That's kind of what is being decided here at the bottom of the barrel. And most of those games in the Western Conference are critical in terms of seeding, just because that's how the playoff race shapes up. But if you head back up to kind of the top of the Western Conference and how those teams are looking. I already mentioned the Warriors earlier, but at the number 2 kind of projected seed, Denver, and like I said, there's still a lot of jockeying to be had. None of these seeds are actually finalized, but projected number 2 currently, Denver Nuggets sitting at 52-26 with 4 games left. They have 2 games remaining against the Blazers and lost the tiebreaker against Houston. And as such, Denver now needs to win out in order to guarantee the number 2 seed in this playoff race. They'll need to win the rest of their remaining games, all 4 of them, like I mentioned. Now, Houston sitting at 51-28, 3 games remaining. They won tiebreakers against Golden State and Denver, but lost the tiebreaker to Portland. They need to win 1 game more than Denver to take the number 2 seed, and they need to win out to guarantee keeping number 3 over Portland. So I guess you guys can imagine that coming in right under them is Portland. The Blazers are 50-28 with 4 games left. They need to help to climb above number 4. They have tiebreakers with Utah, and those remain undecided and pretty complicated. So Portland really needs to stay a game ahead of the Utah Jazz to guarantee the number 4 spot and home court advantage in the first round. That's very important in terms of what or how deep Utah can go, maintaining that home court advantage. Now, looking at the Jazz, they're 48-30 with 4 games left. They also need help to climb above number 5, including needing to make up at least 2 games on Portland to claim number 4. Utah does have the tiebreaker over the Los Angeles Clippers and lost the tiebreaker against Oklahoma City, and they're pretty likely to be number 5 unless some truly weird stuff happens in this last week of the regular season. Looking at Los Angeles, the only LA team making the playoffs, and it's not the Lakers, as you probably already know. It's the Clippers. They sit at 47-32. Pretty remarkable considering, I mean, back to back, they trade their stars, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, and yet now they sit at 47-32. 3 games remaining, including versus Utah on Wednesday, and they need to win out and watch Utah lose 1 other game to claim the number 5 spot. They're likely to be number 6, in my opinion. They have tiebreakers with San Antonio and Thunder, but those are complicated and undecided at this point. Now, looking at the Thunder, 45-33, like I mentioned earlier, deeper look here. They have 4 games left. They need to win at least 1 more game than the Spurs, who already have 3 games left, to escape the number 8 seed and a likely first-round series with the Warriors, unless the Clippers fall apart in this last week, which, like I said, gets kind of complicated in terms of the seeding game. And then the Spurs, 45-34, they have 3 games left. They need to win as many games as Oklahoma City, who has 4 games left, to escape number 8 and a likely first-round series with the Warriors, unless, once again, the Los Angeles Clippers fall apart. So that's kind of your look at the Western Conference playoff race. And the most critical of those games, when looking at it, all of them are important for seeding. Every team wants to win every game, but these are the ones that are especially important for seeding. You have Trailblazers versus Nuggets. You have Clippers at Warriors, Nuggets at Blazers, Nuggets at Jazz. So the theme here, Denver's games are extremely important. Rockets at Thunder and Jazz at Clippers. Those are your games to watch in terms of big seeding shifts and everything that is likely to occur in this remaining week. Now, in the Western Conference, if you look at the range of seeding, projections-wise, the Warriors could fall anywhere from number 1 to number 3, no lower than number 2 with 1 more win, though, and they clinch number 1 with 2 more wins. So that's very important. The Warriors, if they win 2 games, lock up the first seed. The Nuggets, they could fall anywhere from 1 to 5. They'll be no lower than number 3 with 1 more win, though. The Rockets also anywhere from 1 to 5, but they're no lower than number 4 with 1 more win. The Blazers, when looking at it, anywhere from 2 to 5. The Jazz, 2 to 7. The Clippers, 5 to 8. Thunder, 5 to 8. And the Spurs don't go higher than 6. So they're anywhere from 6 to 8. Back to the Eastern Conference now. Some of the seeding is a little looser. It's less kind of, I mean, like I said, none of the seeds have been clinched other than the 1 and 2 with the Bucks and Raptors. But the rest of the seed ranges, you have the Sixers anywhere from 3 to 5. Their magic number is 2. That's a clinch, number 3 with 3 games left. The Celtics anywhere from 3 to 5, and they can clinch no worse than number 4 with a win versus Indiana. And the Pacers anywhere from 3 to 5, and they can clinch no worse than number 4 with a win versus the Boston Celtics. So lots of interesting stuff going on here in this playoff race, guys. Definitely going to want to stay tuned here to get the updates and full seed projection breakdowns and who's going to win the NBA playoffs as that time comes. Well, that's a wrap, everyone. Anybody wanting to connect with me, the Sports Watchdog, on Twitter can do so at @SportsWatchdog, and on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well at The Sports Watchdog. So until next time, keep your eye on the ball.
The Sports Watchdog. The Sports Watchdog, Ace and Kern.